Husk Power, the third case I wanted to look at, has deployed over 200 undergrid mini-grids in the Indian states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. These are generally in underserved areas with poor electricity service from the state-owned discos. Thanks to economies of scale and optimization of design and operations, Husk has driven the levelized cost of energy, or LCOE, at these mini-grids down to an amazing 25 cents per kilowatt hour. And when I was working on an earlier book, the Mini Grids for Half a Billion People handbook, which we published in 2021, we were pretty excited that the levelized cost of best-in-class mini grids had dropped to 38 cents a kilowatt hour, and we were hoping to see these best-in-class mini grids reach 30 cents a kilowatt hour by 2025, by next year, and 20 cents a kilowatt hour by 2030. So Husk's low-cost achievements are really great news. In Nigeria, Husk has built over 30 mini grids in Nasarawa State and has a pathway to 30 cents a kilowatt hour in Nigeria. Now they're building one mini grid in Nigeria about every 6 days and expect to have a portfolio of 60 by the end of 2024, sorry. All Husk mini grids are not connected to the discos so far, but they're planning 2 or 3 interconnected mini grids this year. Husk is among many mini-grid developers that have a strong focus on productive uses across their sites. This includes leasing electric motorcycles, as well as agricultural processing, like milling machines. Typically, Husk has 4 to 5 milling machines for each of their mini-grids, as well as water pumping and cold storage. In Husk's case, about 65% of the mini-grid's electricity is typically consumed by commercial customers, mostly micro, small, and medium enterprises. Companies building undergrid mini-grids are finding that encouraging productive use pays off and constitutes a substantial portion of the electricity consumed, as well as providing a stimulus to economic growth in the community.
So Manoj, first the question to you. You recently wrote an article with a former state electricity regulator in India that emphasizes the need for mini grids and existing discos to work together in partnerships. If I'm interpreting this correctly, the article seems to imply that discos should give sub-franchises to successful mini grids in rural areas and interconnect with the local discos. Could you elaborate a little bit on this idea?
Yes, thank you for having me here. And I lost your question for like 10 seconds, but the question, I guess, is the mini grids and the mini grids that are undergrid can interact with the disco through Triple P in order to deliver better service to customers, and it's a win-win situation for everybody, everyone in the ecosystem. So yes, I did write that article, and I strongly believe that for any country to get to a net zero position that most countries are striving to do, as well as to provide close to 24/7 power to end customers in an environmentally friendly way, which also addresses climate adaptation. The only path that I see, whether it is India or Nigeria, where Husk Power Systems is operational today, or for that matter, California in the United States, the only path is for the discos or the discoms, as we call it in India, to have a partner that focuses on customers, which is what we do at Husk. And the regulation should allow that to happen either through a sub-franchisee model or through a Triple P partnership model that extends not just 10 or 20 years, but actually 30 to 40 years, because the asset life of solar PV is nowadays 35 plus years. Because what companies like us do is we focus really on end customer service, which is not only good voltage, good frequency, addressing customer problem within 120 minutes, like we promise to our customers, but also we are also financing assets in the ecosystem or the community that we serve that helps propel these customers, in our case, or people from or climb up the economic ladder. So for a country to progress from, especially the emerging economies, to progress, the discos that are traditionally not built to focus on customers as much versus private players like us that is built to focus on customer satisfaction, providing productive appliances through financing that requires a whole lot of technical innovation. That's the only path that we see that any country will have, at least in the global south, towards a path of net zero, where it's a win-win-win situation for all parties involved, including discos or discoms that historically makes billions of dollars of losses that taxpayers funds eventually, and private players like us, for us to have a scalable plan to serve millions of customers, focusing on end customer service, and lastly, the customers, because they need that power to climb up the economic ladder. So absolutely, yes, that's the only way we see any emerging country to make a progress towards 24/7 power in a climate-friendly way, and that the country achieves net zero goals.
Thank you so much, Manoj. That is certainly a good overview of I think, Husk philosophy and the approach that you have to your service quality and to your customers. So I see that there's a question for Manoj. I believe you inserted already in the chat, but if you don't mind going over it again, I think it's a good one. How do we ensure that these franchisees provide quality consumer services and do not end up poorly functional monopolies like their predecessors? And how do you suggest that governments should select an operator for a mini grid if there's more than one company interested in working in the same area?
So I'll be repeating a whole lot of things that I said on the chat. So the regulation needs to define the quality framework of electricity that anybody is going to provide. And it is very easy to monitor that and apply a penalty if we did not follow that regulated voltage frequency fluctuations and things like that. We have every mini grid that we operate has an IoT. We provide real-time data every 5 minutes, so it's not impossible for regulators to monitor and levy a penalty if we are not meeting the standards that are provided by the regulators. So that's on the regulation side. The second side, which is more natural balancing, we are displacing, for example, in India,
take a walk.
We are displacing discos or discoms, as our customers pick up Husk Power Systems supply, because one, we are much better in terms of quality of power, but most importantly, we are much better on addressing a problem as and when it occurs. So service level agreement with our customers in India is 120 minutes or less, any problem that you report any time of the day. And we are able to meet 90 minutes on an average. So the customers who have been historically not paying or have not been a great customer to discos or discoms will eventually become the same for us as well. For the investment that we make, it is in our interest to make sure that our customers are super happy. For example, we measure NPS, Net Promoter Score, to assess customer satisfaction on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. So that's a natural balancing of, you can say, capital market forces with regulation that makes sure that this actually occurs. So that's a response to question number one. Question number two is, how can one player just take the franchisee or sub-franchisee? Of course, it should be an open tender or bidding process, or whoever provides the best overall. So it should not be only the lowest cost, because you will see the same problem of poor service as well. If you combine a cost plus quality of service plus customer response time, and if you tender those out, the best player may win. These are infrastructure projects where we tend to spend millions of dollars on an asset base. To ensure that we have a return on asset base, we do need a visibility of 25, 30 years. These days, as you may know, solar PVs are rated to last 35 plus years, right? So to answer the sub-franchisee question, it is going to be more of an open bidding process with 3 or 4 factors, not just cost as a factor to win. And then the best player may win. Obviously, it should be regulated, like I said, on the quality of electricity, on the quality of service that we are providing to customers. So if we are saying the service level agreement with our customers is we will respond no matter what in 120 minutes or less, that's also pretty easy to monitor. So that's how I think it is going to be a true winning solution for all parties involved. And we will not have a rogue player just come in, take the franchisee and never service the customer to the promises that they made to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manoj. No, absolutely. And I am actually curious also to hear from Sion and Manoj on this from their perspective. How do you feel about the the massive responsibility that is often placed on private developers to reach the poorest and most remote communities? And do you feel it's the responsibility of the companies to be the humanitarians in a way in this context, or do you feel that there should be an environment and a framework set up by the governments where the companies have the appropriate incentives, but they're not responsible necessarily for all of the various aspects of reaching the poorest?
I can take it first. So obviously this is a rogue player versus not. And to prevent rogue players from doing things that are not beneficial for the community, the regulation needs to be defined properly. And Nigeria is a great example of a very well written regulation that, in my opinion, does not allow rogue players to operate in the ecosystem. So long-term incentives, long-term contract, customer-facing, guardrails are important for the, private players to succeed. In the chat window, I wrote, telecom revolution was actually orchestrated by private players because the rate of innovation, etc., is, in my opinion, much more pronounced and faster by private players. For example, in Husk case, we have been using artificial intelligence to not just predict the demand, but also use that prediction to do operational management. That has reduced our cost of operations at each site at the rate of 11% compounded for the last 7 years. Can government do that? I haven't seen an example. Maybe somebody can, maybe Singapore can. But the fact is the private players can bring innovation at a pace that is required to meet the electrification goal for 2.5 billion people who do not have access to reliable electricity today. If we adopt the traditional method of doing these things, it will probably take another 200 years to reach all these people. And therefore, that's not the solution that we should be promoting. Should there be guardrails by regulators? Absolutely, yes. But let private and public come together to make this happen at a faster pace than it has ever been done before. Thanks. I can suggest what the World Bank can do. And there are two things that the World Bank can provide in Nigeria context. One is the MEGA insurance product is not available for Nigeria market and definitely not for Naira. If the World Bank cannot solve it, who can? So the World Bank and the President Ajay Banga needs to step up on this front. And the number two is the regulation is lagging, right? So when currency devalued by about 70 to 73% over the last 6 to 8 months, the regulation has not caught up, or it takes 6 to 8 to 9 months to catch up for the regulation for the tariff to be implemented. Like the most recent band-aid tariff went from 66 to 225. That process, I think the World Bank may be able to intervene to make it a little bit or tad faster so that we are not bleeding for 6, 8, 9, 12 months at the older tariff that has not been approved for the renewal. So those are the two concrete things that the World Bank can do and help both private sector and public sector to make things better for everyone in Nigeria. Thank you.
The role of interconnected mini grids in your portfolios and in the prioritization of the work that you are supporting over the next few years. So perhaps we can go to Manoj first.
Thank you. So at Husk Power Systems, currently we have a portfolio of about 275 to 280 mini grids across India and Nigeria. We recently closed $103 million of equity and debt financing, which happened in October of 2023. With that funding, we are planning to expand our portfolio of mini grid assets across India and Nigeria to a total of 1,500 mini grids, give or take, by the end of 2026, which is a very concrete number. Now that I have made promises, I need to deliver on that promise. But in the long run, which is 2030, we want to deliver 5,000 mini grids. That includes our Africa Sunshot initiative, which entails entering multiple countries. That will include countries like DRC, Madagascar, and such. And we are very grateful and to the DARES program that has occurred in Nigeria now, and the World Bank that is going to support in many other countries, including DRC. And what we are really excited about is the local currency financing is available in Nigeria. which is despite the headwinds that we are seeing in Naira currency, the local currency financing will help us scale at a pace of 6 to 10 minigrids on a monthly basis in Nigeria, 25 to 30 minigrids per month in India. And we do plan to enter DRC by the end of this year, but we don't stop only with the minigrids offering. As I was mentioning earlier, we have built this tech-enabled platform through which we are able to provide both CNI rooftop solutions to clients like that furniture store that AEDC is serving today, but also many others in the peri-urban areas, both in India and Nigeria. Our goal is to do more than 100 megawatts of CNI rooftop solution by the end of 2026, India and Nigeria combined, plus DRC that we are entering. And very importantly, we have built an e-commerce platform through which we are financing and providing energy efficient appliances that includes lifestyle appliances like television and such for bettering the lifestyle of households, as well as productive machines like welding machine, lathe machine, and such that we also finance through credit offering that we are going to provide to these customers. So we are not just supplying electricity through minigrids offering, we are actually elevating hundreds of communities right now and thousands of communities eventually to climb up the economic ladder by investing in both infrastructure and the productive uses of electricity and providing all these at a very reasonable price point that moves the needle of GDP per capita in every single community that we serve. So long story short, we have a goal to do 5,000 minigrids by 2030 and impact 100 million people lives positively and eliminate 100 million tons of CO2 on a annual basis as we scale to that level. Our intermediate goal is to IPO the company in 2026 so that we can raise more capital in order to deliver on our promise of 5,000 minigrids by 2030. That's all from us. Thank you.